you represent versus your service to the city overall?
That's a good, interesting question. I'm interested in serving the city. I've been involved in government service 30 years ago at the state level as a state representative serving Lee Summit in Jefferson City and enjoyed it. Served 3 terms, went back to my business, have operated a business in Lee Summit for 20 years. Haven't gotten real involved in city government until recently. And I've had a desire once again and have been encouraged by some of my friends to consider running for city council. We gave it strong consideration, and obviously I decided that that's something I want to do. How do you balance the interest of a district like District 3 that I'm proposing to represent versus the overall good of the city? The city charter sets up that dilemma because we are organized by districts and we represent those constituents. I've been meeting with and talking with and knocking on the doors of hundreds of people in District 3. You might imagine I haven't gone to the doors of District 1, 2, or 4 because my constituency is District 3. I want to listen to what's on their mind. That's not my choice, that's the city charter. It was set up that way. I'm going to represent first and foremost the citizens of District 3. At the same time, they're electing me as their representative. So the dilemma always falls on an elected official. Do you represent totally the constituents' viewpoint, or do you, as a representative, sometimes have the right to make decisions on their part that they might not agree with necessarily, but is in the best interest of the city? There is no yes or no answer, black or white answer to that. I can tell you I intend to serve 1 term, 4 years as city councilman, and then move on and let somebody else do it. So the balance will be there, but I'll tell you my first priority will always be representing District 3's views. There will be times, however, I don't know what their views might be, probably most of the time. So at that point, I think you have to look at what is best for the city. And should you ever know that your district may differ in their opinions for what the city is, then it becomes incumbent upon that councilman to try to educate his citizens in his district to what is best for the city, and that may not be in the best interest of that district.
Thank you. What do you see as the next major challenges or priorities for Lee Summit, and give us your vision for meeting them?
I think the vision that I've been developing in my own mind, somewhat during this candidacy, but also something just as an observer over the last decade or so, is it's a great community. I moved here in 1979 with my wife and my children. We raised our children in the school districts that brought us here. I located my business downtown Lee Summit and watched that wonderful jewel come about. And then I invested in the city and built my own office building out in Woods Chapel. One of the things that concerns me is we've done a great job of bringing people to Lee Summit to build a home and raise their children. I hate the term, but we were and have been a bedroom community. One of the things that depresses me is when you drive on 470 to 435 into Johnson County early in the morning, you see a lot of Eastern Jackson County folks driving to Johnson County to work and then march back in the evening back to their homes in Eastern Jackson County. To set up my answer, one of the things that we have to do is make the transition from that bedroom community to a viable city over 100,000 people who can find jobs here and stay in Eastern Jackson County. Maybe not just Lee Summit, but in Eastern Jackson County. One of the challenges, many challenges that the city faces is that transition. One of the things I think we have to do is get very aggressive in economic and business development, which we have been, but I think we have to look to our neighbors to the west to see how they've done it, what they're doing that has been so successful for the last 30 years, and look at what we can do here in Lee Summit. What jobs can we target? What industries can we target that Lee Summit is peculiar in its attraction? And then go after them through our state delegation, our federal delegation, and coordination between the business community, the education community, and the political community in Lee Summit.
Thank you, Mr. Holland.
Long answer, sorry.
As Lee Summit's population grows to 100,000 and beyond, how would you ensure that appropriate infrastructure and continued public safety issues are met?
Well, by making them what they are, the number one priority. You look at the federal government's number one priority is to defend our nation. In city government, our number one priority is public safety, and infrastructure is not far behind it. We have to have good sewers, good roads, good water systems. We have to have public safety, both fire and police protection. Simply put, that has to be the first thing we do. And so as a city councilman, that'll be one of the things that I'll be working on, is to ensure that those are the priorities that we put in place and keep there.
Thank you. Given the volatility of property taxes and other municipal income challenges, how would you propose to diversify the city's revenue base or appropriate expense reduction to ensure sustainment of current services to all of our citizens?
I'm not sure that I have the answer to that question. That's a very good question, one that probably will take more than 5 or 10 minutes for me to think about. Perhaps I need to say that we're going to have to study that with some of the other experts. But I think the question is getting at, do we look for other revenue sources beyond property tax? Politically, I don't think that's viable right now. We're in depressed economic times. I truly believe that we're positioned, Lee Summit, in a very good position that when we see economic recovery, we're going to see revenues increase too as a result of it. I'm not going to be one of those people out there looking to raise a whole lot of taxes. Our citizens are certainly not in the mood for raising a whole lot of taxes, as we saw with the school levy issue. We just simply have to live within our means right now, and we have to prepare for the economic recovery that we know is coming. And when that comes, I think we'll see increased revenues. But back to economic development, we also, if we can bring growth in jobs and businesses, that also is going to bring revenue here, both in sales tax and property tax.
Thank you. What is Lee Summit's role in supporting and expanding cultural arts in our city?
Does that question mean, I guess you can't clarify for me, does it mean Lee Summit City Council's role, the city government's role, or the city's role?
City Council.
I assume that's what it meant, that the city council's role. Well, the city council is the legislative branch of government. It's one of the important ones. Any initiative that's brought by citizens groups like cultural arts has to get the blessing and the push from city council. So I think it's very important that we do that. However, I think the cultural arts has been bubbling up from a citizens advisory group. Let's think about continuing a government citizens consortium where we look for revenue sources, we raise money both from private and public sources. The city council, along with, of course, the mayor, has to be the driving force behind it. Let's face it. This is the political class we're talking about. Whether we like it or not, the decisions are made on appropriations, and it has to be there. I, for one, will support enhancements of the cultural arts because it is one of those things that gets us away one step further from the bedroom community to offer the kinds of things that our citizens will need as we continue to grow. Now, where the priorities are in an economic condition where we're faced with now with the recession, we may not be able to do all the things that we'd like to do immediately. But certainly Performing Arts Center is something that would be wonderful. Convention Center would be wonderful. It's things that we need to prepare for and set priorities for, but it's not going to happen probably in the next 3 or 4 years during my term.
Thank you. What is the next step in the continued development of the Lee Summit Airport?
C number 1. District 3, surrounds the airport, and for 30 years, the residents of District 3 have opposed the further expansion of the airport. My son is a pilot. I understand the importance of general aviation to economic development and everything else that it brings. However, my district is opposed to the further expansion of the runways And that's the position that I will take as their representative. I've taken that position publicly. That does not mean that I won't support enhancements to the facilities that we have there. It is an important economic development tool to the city, not the most important tool. But my position will be that I will support our existing facilities there. If we need, if we need additional hangar space, or companies want to come in and do that, I'm not opposed to that. But I will oppose any further expansion of the runways that will bring bigger, heavier airplanes in.
Thank you. This next question, actually there are two questions. What approach and/or strategic partnerships would ensure a sustainable commercial and residential redevelopment? And what and when would economic incentives be appropriate?
Well, the idea of redevelopment is that we look at areas that are blighted. At least some, it doesn't have a lot of blighted areas. We have, maybe some that we can point to. But we can also look at those that are underdeveloped. And I think the City Council and the Land Clearance Authority has some tools already. I think we need to look towards expanding those areas. We do have some additional areas that we should look at. Some of the 50 highway corridor, some of the older 291 corridors. There's no reason why we can't expand those tax abatement authorities into those areas to bring about some of the redevelopment. Let's face it, not a whole lot of development is going on right now because of the economic recession. Redevelopment is probably something that we really need to look at. We can look at our city, our sister city, if we want to call that Independence, who was slow on redevelopment, and you can see what has happened in some of their areas. I think Lee Summit, we're on top of it. There's been a lot of you that have been heavily involved in that. I haven't been. But redevelopment is something that the City Council should get behind. I'll be behind expansion of that authority.
What is your position on the pending bond issues on the upcoming November ballot?
I do not have a position on those November ballots issues, and I don't think it's appropriate that I take a position. I wasn't involved in proposing and promoting those. I don't know the details of it and all that. I'm just simply not going to take a position on it. I don't think it would be appropriate as a candidate to do that.
Thank you. Please state why you believe the voters should support you as a candidate, and state what you would most like to accomplish during your term.
I guess being a good guy is not enough. Well, I bring a unique set of skills, if you will, to the City Council. I have a business perspective. I've raised a family here. I understand economic development. When I was in the Missouri House, I served on the Commerce Committee. This is a long time ago, so there's a lot of things that I have to learn again. But I am pro-growth. I believe in economic development issues, and I believe that Lee Summit is uniquely situated in Jackson County. We are the crown jewel of Jackson County now. The city of Kansas City isn't anymore. We are the crown jewel. We are the counterbalance for Johnson County in a lot of ways. And I understand that. I understand business issues, and I can be that sort of advocate for economic development. And I think I will bring a conservative approach to government. I understand what priorities of city government should be, and I'll be promoting those.
Thank you. Mr. Holland, our final question addresses diversity. As our city continues to become more diverse, what approach should City Council take to capitalize on its many benefits?
I'm going to have to pass on that question. I don't know. I haven't given that consideration.
Thank you. This concludes the questions for Mr. Holland. Thank you.